basic money management, subtitle Older Adults and Seniors. There's my introducing me. Up there we are. That's me in the office that I don't get to see very much anymore. My name is Richard. I'm the Senior Education Facilitator. By the way, that large bottle I'm holding there in the picture is full top to bottom with cut up credit cards of different clients over the years of the organization I work for, which is called Credit Canada or Credit Canada Debt Solutions. We are Canada's oldest credit counseling agency. We started off more than 50 years ago. At that time, we were called the Credit Counseling Service of Metropolitan Toronto, and we only worked inside the city of Toronto. Since then, we've expanded and expanded and expanded, and now we work right across Canada dealing with people. And what we do, that's what we call our mission statement. We help people get out of debt so they can get back into life. The people that we help are our clients. I like to say they have only one thing in common across all of them. And what they have in common is they have some kind of money troubles, money issues. There's something with all of our clients that's bothering them. They feel they have a problem. They don't know what to do about that problem. And they're willing to talk to a complete stranger, somebody like me, about the issues that they have. Now, how did they get to that point of having a problem? Well, for a lot of our clients, we say, well, sometimes life happens. And life happens, a lot of different things wind up happening to people. This is what I often call the big three of life happening. And they are in the top left, we have income stopping, income disappearing, jobs disappearing, events like COVID coming along. In the top right, we have anything that affects people's health, physical health, mental health, emotional health, and how that affects people's finances, making the income go down, making the spending go up. And then finally, in the middle there, towards the bottom, we have any kind of change in the composition of a household. And that can be anything from divorces, separations, deaths in the family, income earners, maybe an adult child income earner moving away from home. So these are things that they happen to people in their lives periodically. And when they happen, we just have to accept that they do happen and examine their effect on their finances. Now, for our clients, they're people who our clients are people who've already had something happen. So they're already in some level of financial difficulty, and then our job is to try to help them get out of that situation. But the other thing we're expected to do, and that we are funded to do, is my job. We're expected to talk to people, groups out in the community, and that could be anything from high school kids to seniors, to lunch and learn for corporate employees, to job seekers, to all kinds of different organizations, labor unions, universities, colleges, government groups, anybody who's willing to hear us talk about different subjects. So today I have a fairly short presentation. The drapes are opening. And so we're going to take a little bit of a look at an area I call money management and budgeting. And money management and budgeting, I've got two elements coming in there. The first one I call spending plans. Spending plans is my term for budgets because I don't like the word budget very much. People hear the word budget, they're like, oh, budget is terrible. Budget is not fun at all. And I like to point out that a spending plan involves thinking about things beforehand and reacting to things before they actually happen, if you can, trying to prepare as best you can for the things that happen as you go through life. And then I have one other section in this that I call financial goal setting. And I think it's always important for people to maintain some sort of look at not just what's happening right now, but also to be looking a little bit further down the line and asking themselves, okay, well, what do I want? What is important to me that I should be working toward? But I'm going to start this right now with an observation that at every income level, you can find people who, with that level of income, are doing okay. And you can find people at that income level who are not doing okay. So there are some people on very, very minimal incomes, but they've gotten to be very good at managing their expenses. And so their income is here and their spending is here, and they're okay. And then there are also people who have incomes that are way up here, but their spending is way up here, and they're not okay. Everybody who's ever worked as a credit counselor has a story of somebody who has contacted us, and we try to counsel them. And when we find out what their job is and what their income is, sometimes in our minds we're thinking, you have a really, really good job and a really, really good income. Why do you have money troubles? And that's really, it's a question of what are people doing in their own lives that for some people, they're able to avoid money troubles and other people they're not. Before I go any further, I'm going to tell you about an old friend of mine. So my old friend, for many years, he had a problem with money. So his life was like this. So he was always broke just before payday. And he used to come and ask me for a loan. Richard, he used to call me the Bank of Richard because I was very good at lending money. So just before payday, he would come and say, can I borrow some money until payday? And I would lend him the money and he would pay me back. And then the next payday, again, same thing. Can I borrow some money? Bank of Richard. I would lend him some money. He would pay me back. I didn't charge any interest, so I'm a nice banker. Anyway, most bankers are not like that. But anyway, his life was like this. He got a better job and a nicer income. And then he got a raise or a better job. Income went up, spending went up. Income went up, spending went up. Income went up, spending went up. And he got better eventually. He eventually learned his lessons. But for some time, that was his life. Income goes up, spending goes up. So for a lot of our clients, we see people who they need to kind of take a bit of a refresher course on what we call money management and budgeting, and specifically spending plans. Now, the image I'm showing you right now is the way I go and talk about financial issues and what sort of problems I see when we're looking at people and their financial issues. I'm not going to talk about how to go and build a budget. You probably many or most or all of you already know how to build a budget. That's great. I'm not going to go and teach you things you already know. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share stories for a little while because I like telling stories. All my stories, by the way, I have changed some of the details so they are not so identifiable to the people who these stories started with, but I like telling stories because I find there's often lessons to be learned in hearing stories. And this image of a spending plan here, I've broken it into three parts: a section that's about income, a section that's about fixed expenses, and a section that's about the not fixed expenses. And so for each of those, I have one or more stories of people who have gotten into financial difficulty. So let's take a look at a couple of stories here. So our first couple of stories. First story is about people who have issues with the tax man. Now, for a lot of people as they go through life, if they have income coming in, they either have a low enough income that they don't need to worry about taxes because they have enough tax credits, or they have enough income, but something is being deducted. We'd say it's being withheld at source so that the tax man is getting whatever they need to get. And then when we do our taxes in the spring, we don't have a lot of money owing. And so for a lot of people, tax consequences are not a problem. And then we get the other ones, get the ones who, for whatever reason, and often they're the ones that are being successful. They're getting ahead in some way. Maybe they have self-employment income or rental income or investment income, but they have something where it's not actually being taxed. And I've talked to people who have gotten into Revenue Canada type problems where they were doing well. They were actually, incomes were looking pretty good. And then, of course, when it's time to do the taxes, it turns out that they have paid this much tax, but Revenue Canada says you owe this much tax. So we want the rest of this. So anyway, that's one issue in the income area. The other one is, I'm not sure if this was going to apply to any of you because I don't know your sources of income, but I know there are many people out there, even now, who have irregular incomes, incomes that are up and down and up and down. And the up part is not a problem. The down part is the problem. It's when people find that for whatever reason, they don't have enough money coming in to cover whatever bills they have to pay or whatever expenses they have. And I've met many people who've had to find creative ways of dealing with the fact that their income is just not always going to be absolutely certain. So I thought I would mention it, but at that point, I want to move on to the next area I want to highlight, and these are the fixed expenses. So when I say fixed, I'm talking about the sort of expenses that are made on a regular basis. They may be exactly the same, or they might change a little bit. So some cases there could be a little bit of variation. But what makes them fixed is the fact that you probably had to sign a contract and you had to make an agreement, a commitment. There's a contract, there's an amount that has to be paid on a regular basis. This includes the housing costs, rent or mortgage, the electricity, the heat, the water, the cable TV, the internet, the phone, the home phone, the cell phone, all these things that you either pay or you accept that there are ugly consequences for not making payments. So I don't need to drag this out, point out that when people are not paying the rent, the landlord is saying goodbye. If you're not paying the insurance is canceled. If you're not paying your phone plan, they turn your phone off. So these are things that there are things that are just built into the overall financial picture. So on this slide, I make a comment, well, what if something happens? What's your plan B? And again, going back to stories of people I've talked to people who say, I was just barely making ends meet, and then something happened. Some expense came along, or something changed in life. Or in the last couple of years, for some people, COVID became a problem for some people. Suddenly their source of income went away, and now they're thinking, well, how do I manage to continue making this payment and this payment and this payment? So it says on the slide, Plan B. Plan B is often about giving something up, finding something to say, okay, I think I can do with that. I can live without this. If I have to, I will get that turned off, cut off, given up. And I like to get people, even in good times, to think a little bit about what would be their potential plan B if something bad happened, because I think it makes people think a little bit about not locking into too many fixed expenses. I know this is kind of a difficult thing to say nowadays where housing costs are so high in so many parts of Canada, but for many people, they've locked into housing payments that could be very, very difficult to manage if things turn ugly. Okay, now if something is not fixed, then it's flexible. And the flexibles in this area here, what I do first is I recommend that people take a look at categorizing and determining what is actually a flexible expense. As it says on the slide, what does flexible mean to you? When we counsel people, we usually try to organize all their finances, get an idea of, okay, what's going out here, what's going out here. That really takes me into my next slide, what you're spending. And I can tell you stories all day long of people, usually younger people, who really had no idea what they were spending. They'd say, the money in my bank account, it just disappears. It's like, and it's like, it's not magic. It's not like, some magician comes in, ooh, money in the account is all gone. So you're actually spending it. This is one of the downsides of the 21st century economy, where we all have debit card and a credit card and maybe more credit cards, and we can go through life and we can tap and swipe and tap and swipe. And then one day it's like, where did all our money go to? Why do we have no money in the bank? Well, where's the money going to? That's, it's about it's being spent. Where is it actually being spent? For some people, we have to talk to them about the importance of tracking where the money's going out to, figuring out what are you actually doing with your money. In this area here, I should also mention that when we're counseling people, we also have to look at, when we say, what are you spending? We don't mean you, one person. We mean you as in the whole household. Sometimes counselors will meet, in particularly couples, where there is one person who is pretty good with money and one person who is pretty bad with money. And the person who's pretty bad with money is dragging the other person down because they're the one who's actually spending all the money. So what you are spending, we also need to say, well, and who is the one who's actually spending the bulk of the money? Once we have that understood, then we can get into talking about possibilities. What can people actually do better? Again, some stories from people that I've met, people who've said that they realized that when they were using their debit card or credit card too much, they needed to find ways of putting limits on what they were doing. Some people moved to prepaid cards. They'd say, okay, well, for my whatever expense this month, I have a prepaid card. I'll load the card up. I'll use the card. And when the card runs out, then I can't spend any more money this month on that particular expense item. I know that in my wallet right now, I have, for example, I have a Starbucks card with some money on it. So I could say, for example, well, when that Starbucks card runs out, then no more Starbucks for me until I go and I reload the card, maybe my next pay period. So, you get people who say, well, okay, what can I do differently with my money? And I encourage people to be creative. Look at, where do you spend money? When do you spend money? Why, what are the reasons why people go through all their money? What can people do differently? And then that takes us to this, work out your options, decide what you could actually do better. Now, that is a look at just what's happening on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. It is important, I think, for people who are managing the finances to spend a little bit of time at least talking about what sort of things you want to do that you haven't gotten to do yet. Now, I have this slide here that I use for all age groups, talking about financial goal setting in the short term, the medium term, and the long term. I find that when I'm talking to people who don't really have any real financial goals, it's the money just sort of comes in and goes out and comes in and goes out and comes in and goes out. And so I encourage people to at least think about something that, they would like to have, or they would like to see or do or experience, and then make a plan towards actually acting towards realizing that. And you see this slide here has 4 columns: objective on the left, then estimated cost, target date, monthly savings. And so what this is about first off, getting people to state openly, what is it that you would like? So you could say anything. Here, my example is, I'd like a vacation. I'd like a vacation to, we don't know where, anywhere, anywhere is fine. So, but a vacation to somewhere. And then we need to say, well, okay, well, how much do I think it would cost? And when would I like to have it? So here I gave myself some very easy math, $1,200 and 12 months. And that tells me I need to put away $100 a month in order to be able to enjoy this. The idea here is not just about, working things through and, making sure the money is being put aside, but it's also the motivational effect of having people think about, what is it that I want and how badly do I want it? Because, people could say they want anything. I want a Ferrari. I want to go on a rocket to the moon with Elon Musk. But, that's not going to happen. I could just talk about things that, what do I really want? Okay. And I think for everybody else out there, what do you really want? You can decide for yourself. So just a little more mention of what exactly it is that I and my organization do. So we are credit counselors. And as it says on the slide, the role of credit counselors is to provide helpful guidance. All accredited counselors are required to have the AFCC, Accredited Financial Counselor Canada certification. And when we're talking to people, we will often wind up doing a free debt assessment where we would go through, you can see as it says on the slide there, first appointment objectives. We'd want to review somebody's financial situation, take a look at their debt situation, see if they have any issues, and provide debt relief options, and also create a customized budget so we can provide our input into where people's money is coming from, where it's going out to, and what we think they could do better.